where we play non-violent games, games that reward the player for engaging with them either intellectually and or emotionally, rather than for any kind of violent accomplishments. We are finally back to my regular schedule, at least in theory. So I am really excited to get back to this. Ah, this must be the telegram. Let's see. Ah! Oh, no, you mustn't look at that, not under any circumstances. All right, I won't. I'm sorry, Naruto-san, but you can be very mischievous at times. And put the telegram away if you don't want people looking at it. Okay, look, I'm gonna be frank. That's on me, and that's on him. That's on Rhino's. Like, it is. Like, that... We were rather lucky to find that old aquarium left behind here. The prawns we put in there are doing rather well, and the anemones, too. It's a wonderful invention, isn't it? The sea behind glass inside your room. Another example of Great Britain's greatness. Having to clean it out and change the water isn't so great, though, is it? Ah, the Daruma doll I brought with me from home. Still with only one eye colored in. I said I'd color the other eye once I won my first court case in here in Britain, but... But you have one, haven't you? Twice, in fact. Because I feel as though I'm still lacking as a lawyer. I'll tell you what, why don't you color the other eye in once you think I'm a proper, fully fledged lawyer? If you insist. Do you know, I've never seen inside your room there, Susato-san. I've never even peeked inside. I should think so, too. A young maiden's private chamber is a place of bittersweet secrets, you know. Whatever you say, young maiden. Okay, I think that looks like everything up here. It means a great deal to me, you know, that you cherish his armband so, and wear it each time you appear in court. Well, it's very important to me. It's what shows that I'm a lawyer. And whenever I wear it, I feel as though it gives me strength, through Kazuma. I absolutely can't be without it, especially when I'm in a critical point in a trial. But just the other day I noticed you wearing it when we went to visit that park. Sometimes I forget to take it off. Okay, what voice did I give Iris? It's been a few weeks.
That's why they can't.
Okay. Morning, Bruno. Morning, Susie. Good morning, Iris. Iris? What is it, Bruno? What is that terrible noise? It sounds like a cat being strangled. Ah, yes. You noticed that, did you? Hurley isn't in his best form this morning, it seems. Hello. Hello, Mr. Schultz. Good morning. A good morning to die, perhaps. Has something happened, Mr. Sholmes? You look miserable in the way you were playing the violin before. My analytical mind is dead. Music is dead. The world is dead. Damn this blanched existence! That's all it is, my dear fellow. Nothing of consequence. I'm afraid I don't understand. Well, Iris, is it time we ate? Some dry toast and insipid coffee for me, if it's not too much trouble. Oh, look! Oh, look! It's Ragahai. Good morning, boy. Oh. That must be some sort of tiny door for cats to use. But how did it get there? Well then, everyone. Time for breakfast. Oh, wonderful. Let me help you, Iris. It would indeed be a fine day to die. I knew something looked different. Something's missing from Mr. Sholmes' desk. You seem to be very unhappy this morning, Mr. Sholmes. What's happened? It used to be the case that in my hands, this violin sung like the dawn chorus. Its resonant tones would make flowers bloom. It would? But now, muses are unamused with me. The goddesses of music have thrown me over. Whatever do you mean, Mr. Sholmes? For hours I have bowed, for days even. Through the night I have endeavored to no avail. That sound, my tone, is lost. That brilliant, clear, unwavering tone, gone forever. No more recitals of unbridled emotion. Well, you haven't been practicing much lately, have you, Hurley? Don't worry. I'm sure it will come back to you in time. Heed my words, Mr. Naruhodo. The goddesses of the arts are fickle. One day they bestow genius on a man, the next they unmercifully withdraw it. Oh dear. Ah, why is this happening to me? If they take the turn I have for the violin from me, what is left for pity's sake? What is left? Deduction perhaps? Isn't that what you're known for? Mr. Sholmes, I don't like to pry, but your desk looks rather empty today. Ah, well done, Mr. Soto. Your observational skills do you credit. Oh, no, Mr. Sholmes. They pale into insignificance when compared to yours. You'd struggle not to notice, wouldn't you? You mean Hurley's great analytoscope? That's at Windibank's now. Sorry, it's at a Windy Bank? No, Windibank's, the pawnbrokery. Pawn... what? You mean you've pawned that enormous machine of yours? It has some considerable value, you see. Quite undeservingly. But isn't it a very important machine for your work? I do wish you had consulted us had your situation become so desperate. I should have gladly passed what little income I have to you. Dear madam, things are far from desperate. But the pawnbroker has your wonderful machine. How could it be anything but desperate? Making use of a pawnbrokery is quite ordinary here in London, I assure you. It is? It doesn't sound ordinary at all. It would seem that neither of you fully understand how pawnbroking works. Oh, what's to understand exactly? What did you mean when you said we didn't fully understand how pawnbroking works? To the people of London, pawnbrokeries are akin to banks. Banks? On Mondays, merchants relinquish their finest jackets and trappings to their pawnbroker of choice. With the money they receive in return, they are able to trade happily through the week. And then on Saturdays, they go to recover the things they've used. They go to recover their things using the money they've earned. I had no idea. This has been a fascinating lesson for us. Everyone does it, you see, especially people in inner London. And should they have money to spare, they would purchase another fine jacket. Not to wear, obviously, but to pawn, should the need arise. Oh, how ingenious. So, whenever we have something that's getting in the way, we leave it at Windibank's, you see. A pawnbrokery cannot be thought of as an extremely secure vault. A pawnbrokery can be thought of as an extremely secure vault. Who would have thought that even pawnbrokers are different here in Great Britain? Of course, you have to watch Hurley with it. Sometimes he pawns things he really shouldn't. Don't you, Hurley? What does it matter? The world is dead to me now. Mr. Natsumi's cat seems to have settled into his new home then. Oh yes, and I've become very attached to little Waggy. It would appear his previous owner is completely forgotten to him. Cats are unfeeling creatures. The muse is empty as the hearts of the muses. If Mr. Natsume has no intention of taking Waggy back to Japan, I wonder why he kept him in the first place. I expect he would have taken him if he could. The pets are strictly forbidden aboard steamships in our experience. And for good reason. Terrible things can happen if the rules of passage are not obeyed. Well, I don't mind, because Waggy is adorable. Yes, he really is. Oh yes, what about the door? I don't remember seeing that tiny thing in the main door before. Where did that come from? Oh, you noticed? You're observant, Runa. Look, I use this. It's my latest invention. What is that? I call it the cat flippomat. The cat flappomat. Gosh, a machine for making doors just for cats. That's right. It can make a cat flap for a little furry friend like Waggy in seconds. And it can do it in any door at all, no matter what it's made of. It's very powerful, you see. Wouldn't it have been quicker to just make the cat flap, rather than making a machine to make the cat flap? Well, yes, maybe. But now I can make cat flaps anywhere I like. Oh, I think it's wonderful. You must make one for us in the door of our office upstairs, Iris. She really knows how to come up with unconventional inventions, this girl. Oh, what was that? Welcome, hi. What was that? Oh no! Our guy's tangled up in your violin. I think he thinks it's a toy. No! What's he doing to it? Oh dear! Mr. Shum's precious violin. Why should I care? What? I shouldn't be surprised. If the cat is a more accomplished musician than I now. I shouldn't be surprised if the cat is a more accomplished musician than I now. Mr. Shums really is in poor spirits, isn't he? Well, anyway, I'll put it back where it lives, shall I, Hurley? Out of the cat's reach, if possible. Maybe we should assess the damage. Look at Mr. Shum's desk. It's completely clear. Isn't that enormous machine usually on it? We can never hope to understand what goes on in the great detective's mind, Mr. Naruto. Why, Next time we're invited, we may find he's vacated the entire suite. That's scarily plausible, actually. There's all sorts of these shelves. There's all sorts on these shelves. Chemistry apparatus, books, papers, and lots of things I've never seen before. It's all heaped up so high I can't help but feel that the whole lot is going to topple at any moment. Oh, it's such a charmingly untidy collection of paraphernalia, isn't it? It just looks messy to me, like my desk. But you, Mr. Naruhodo, must learn to tidy up after yourself. No favoritism there, then. Looks like that huge metal chest is being used as a table for tea and coffee. It seems very sturdy, with an equally sturdy lock. Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't go around opening things. I always have to keep an eye on you, don't I? You're very mischievous. You're very mischievous. Mischievous, mischievous, whatever. You're very mischievous. You're very mischievous. How did you come to that conclusion? These are all mementos of Mr. Sholmes' past cases, I think. If he'd been involved in my case, I wonder if the beefsteak from La Carnival would be on display here. A mystery shoe, a curious hammer, some mysterious dancing man, a bust of Napoleon. Ah, what an entrancing collection! It looks like an untidy assortment of junk to me, rather like what's on my own shelves. Well, you really ought to learn to keep your things in order, Mr. Naruhodo. No favoritism there at all. The fire's burning comfortingly in the grate again today. It's a very different feeling to a Japanese hibachi somehow. Oh, look at that photographic print of a lady displayed on the mantelpiece. Could it be? Yes, it must be. It's the woman. Oh, how exciting. Is that supposed to mean something to me? The woman is Irene Adler. In the original, I'm sure she has a different name in this game, but in the original Sherlock Holmes books, the woman is what Sherlock calls Irene Adler. I think I'm getting that name right. Anyways, she's the one woman that he may have ever had any kind of feelings for, within the context of the original stories, which is, part of the reason why a lot of people view him as an aro ace character, which is a romantic asexual character, and the thing is that even with Irene, he, it's never really confirmed whether he has feelings or not. It might just be, intellectual stimulation, which is what he generally pursues, as opposed to any kind of romance or anything. He just doesn't express interest in that. And Irene was the only person who ever beat him, who ever outsmarted him. Which is why he has an interest in her, this extra level of something that we don't quite know. And basically, there's two characters that tend to pop up in most adaptations of Sherlock Holmes. And that's Irene Adler and, of course, Moriarty. Although what's interesting is that, in the original Sherlock Holmes stories, those characters aren't exactly, major recurring things. There are no real recurring things in those stories. They both appeared in one single story, but for some reason they had such an impact that they just persist throughout almost every adaptation. It is really interesting because, the whole thing is just the whole thing about Sherlock Holmes is interesting. Doyle, Arthur Conan Doyle is the guy who wrote the original Sherlock Holmes stories. You know, he actually tried to kill off Sherlock Holmes at one point, and apparently, would you believe it, toxic fandom basically is what brought him back. A bunch of people who claim to be fans, but really, just like today, they weren't really fans, they were just assholes who were using the idea that they liked, using this farce, this idea that they love this thing so much that they essentially bullied Arthur Conan Doyle into bringing him back, which, by the way, you don't do if you actually respect the work. You don't bully the person who created the work. You just don't. For anything. You don't do it. But anyways, that's why he brought Sherlock Holmes back from the dead, was because a lot of people were very angry that he killed him off. So that kind of behavior, unfortunately, has existed for a very, very long time. Long before social media. Yeah, the original Sherlock Holmes stories are very, very good. Apparently, you know, the Doyle estate, despite Sherlock Holmes being in the public domain, the Doyle estate is infamously litigious, you know, because there are still a few Sherlock Holmes books that haven't gone out of copyright yet. And so, like, I remember reading at one point that they tried to sue someone for breaching the copyright by claiming that Sherlock Holmes didn't express emotions in the stories that are in the public domain, and as such, having a version of him that expressed emotions was not covered, or was still protected by copyright. Which is ridiculous. He did have emotions in the original stories. They were just differently expressed and tended to be limited. But, like, it's not like he had zero emotions. But anyways, it's just the whole thing with Sherlock Holmes is very interesting. This is where Iris notes down ideas, isn't it? Let's see, what does it say today? Ah, the Boscombe Valley Mystery. Ooh, how intriguing. It must be the title of Iris's latest work. Oh my, I wonder what fantastic tale awaits us. Susato-san looks like an angel, but I bet she's dreaming of the most unsavory crime you could imagine. Iris's beautiful tea set is there on the table as usual. A cup of one of her special herbal blends always helps me to relax when I'm feeling the strain. The English pastime of tea has so many similarities with our own tea ceremony customs, don't you think? It's the idea of hospitality behind it. That's the essence of tea. Come to think of it, I haven't seen Iris doing much writing recently. But there's paper already set up in the typewriter. Look, as if she's about to start. That reminds me. When I mentioned that Iris was in the process of writing a full-fledged novel, Mr. Natsume was most impressed. Ah yes, Mr. Natsume. That's what I'll be doing too once I'm back in Japan, he said through tightly clenched fists and teeth. He said through tightly clenched fists and teeth. That's a charming little white shelf, and full of charming little bottles, too. But the contents of them aren't quite so charming, it seems. Science is the future, Mr. Naruto. You can't deny it. I'm saving my money so that I can buy some chemistry apparatus as well. Law, chemistry, takedown throws. What diverse skills you boast, Mr. Sato. As useful as they are, I'm not sure that my throwing skills are worthy of inclusion in that list. Wow, you tend to use them a lot. So, this is the violin, is it? It's a Stradivarius, one of the finest violins in the world, made by the renowned Italian luthier, Antonio Stradivari. Oh, I see. It doesn't really look like anything special to me. I happened upon it covered in dust, languishing in a pawn shop down a nondescript back alley. The broker had no idea of its value, so I was able to purchase it for a mere 55 shillings. How honorable of you. And until today, it has been my faithful companion in every Paganini-inspired performance I have made. I ask you, is there reason to live in a world devoid of music, to tolerate this pledged existence? No! There is none! Mr. Sholmes? What, dear madam, what? My thoughts are preoccupied with fancies of release from this dull routine. Well, it's about the violin. It looks very different to normal, don't you think? What do you mean, Mrs. Sato? Oh, Susie's right. Yes, the tone of the wood is completely different. And that's not all. I'm sure there was no crack here before. Wait, it's not even the right size, is it? What's this? I'm terribly sorry to have to tell you this, Mr. Sholmes, but that instrument isn't a violin at all. Then what? Then what? I believe it's an entirely different instrument called a viola. What? Mr. Sholmes, are you all right? You're right. You are quite right. This isn't my faithful Stradivarius. So what, pray, is this piece of string flotsam? Not your faithful performing partner, then. Ah, I see what must have happened. You do, Iris? This is just a simple mix-up. Sounds like Iris might be able to tell us exactly what's happened if we ask her. What do you mean by a mix-up, Iris? Well, you see, this viola, I mean, was at Windibank's until last week. At the pawnbroker's. Not Mr. Sholmes' beloved musical partner. There's a proverb from the East, with which you are no doubt familiar, my dear fellows. Always let a beloved child travel. Yes, indeed. So you sent your beloved violin to the pawnbrokers in the hope that it would experience personal growth? Oh, what a wonderful idea. Last week, I pawned my great analytoscope in order to release my precious instrument, but it would appear Mr. Windibank mistakenly furnished me with this tawdry fiddle instead. But my ears cannot be deceived by the hollow timber of this piece of timber. No, but your every sense was deceived by the fact that it just had strings. Pshaw! A fine state of affairs this is. And why I always say, Mr. Naruto, never trust a pawnbroker. They will try to fiddle you every time. But earlier you told us that you could think of a pawnbroker who has an extremely secure vault. Come, Mr. Naruto. Dilly-dallying will get you nowhere. Sorry? Crunching your toast with that vacant aspect. Fressing your coffee so obtusely. Are you not a little embarrassed by your own conduct, considering the urgency with which we are faced? We must visit Mr. Windibank's brokery at once. That's right, isn't it, Mr. Sholmes? Precisely, Mr. Sato. Without a moment's delay. But I haven't finished my bacon and eggs. My dear fellow, surely you do not still intend to crunch your bacon with an increasingly vacant aspect, to thrust your egg ever more obtusely. All right, say no more, let's go then. Don't worry, Bruno. I'd be happy to heat it up for you again later. Oh, thank you, Iris. As it happens, I am rather curious to see what a British pawnbroker's looks like. April 15th, Windibank's Pawnbrokery. So this is a British pawnbrokery. Oh my, there are all sorts of tools and contraptions in here that I've never laid eyes on before. Ah, Susato-san, and that spark of wonder in your eyes. You can't wait to scour the shelves, can you? I get the impression you enjoy places like this. Oh yes, I don't know why, but seeing such a lot of things I don't understand is a real thrill for me. My dear fellows, let us not forget why we are here. Oh, Mr. Sholmes. We are calling on matters of business, not pleasure. And clearly Mr. Sholmes means business too, judging from the spark of fury in his eyes. Okay.
Ah, Mr. Sholmes, sir. Welcome back. Ah, Mr. Sholmes, sir. Welcome back.
Did you hear that brazen welcome? Well, yes, we are potential customers after all. We are disgruntled customers, Mr. Naruto, and it's time to inform Mr. Whittaker of our ire. Come, the fight is afoot. Let's see, I feel like maybe he'd have a kind of almost lethargic voice, like a slow... Naturally, you will recall this, which I retrieved from you some days ago.
Yes. Yes.
This second-rate fiddle is not my faithful instrument, Mr. Whittaker. The color of the wood is different. It has holes in it. It's not even the same size. A wonderful summary of our observations, Mr. Sholmes.
I'm so very sorry, sir. How utterly unforgivable of me. An inexcusable mistake for a pawnbroker. There is only one way to make amends.
Holy shit! Holy shit! This is not funny! I shall have to take my own life. I don't think that will be necessary, do you? What the fuck? This is not okay. This is not funny. This is not funny. My God. What a despicable... I'm sorry. I'm sorry to any viewers I may have. I'm sorry for being angry quite so much, but I'm also sorry that you have to see this incredible piece of disrespect. Suicide is not a joke. It is not a joke. Yes. It was you, Sir Mr. Sholmes, who took it upon himself to remove the item the other day, I believe. Sorry.
As I recall, I entered the storeroom to fetch a violin when I heard, "Ah, here it is."
You did?
And when I turned to controvert you, you had taken the viola and left, sir. However, there can be no doubt that the blame lies firmly at my own door for allowing you to leave. So I shall not grumble or grouse any longer. May this guilt die with me.
No, no, stop, my dear fellow. The fault is mine. Phew. It would appear that the fight is over. I do humbly apologize, Mr. Windbag. Evidently, my questionable disposition precipitated this tragedy.
Well, you wouldn't be Mr. Herlock Sholmes without that questionable disposition now, would you?
Haha, I do believe you may be right, sir. It's either laugh or cry, I suppose.
You are, it must be said, one of my more challenging customers. I needed to remind you of the peculiar collection of items you've brought through my door in the past.
Oh, peculiar items?
In the extreme, ma'am. For example, the unpublished manuscript of an eponymous work. The novels of Herlock Sholmes or some such.
Oh my, a new full-fledged novel? And unpublished? A story I have yet to read, you mean?
Ah,
Forgive me. Wait, before you die, you must tell me more. Jesus Christ. Guys, I'll try to push through this, but this is really hard for me. This is really hard for me. This is really triggering and hurtful. My god. Holy shit. This is really triggering and hurtful. I'll try to get through this, but man, like to make his quirk, you know, like a lot of Ace Attorney characters have a quirk of some kind, to make one guy's quirk that he's literally going to kill himself is so unbelievably disrespectful. Like, so, oh my god, it's just so ignorant and just offensive. I mean, offensive doesn't even begin to describe this. Like, really. I must know more. Tell me everything. Wow, Susanna-san's really fired up now. Is there really an unpublished story under this very roof?
Well, one day the gentleman here brought in an old metal chest, you see.
I should like to entrust this to your care for a while, Mr. Wintermeg.
For a chest like that, 1 shilling, sir. Not a farthing more.
It houses something of very great value indeed. The latest manuscript, recounting the adventures of one Mr. Herlock Sholmes.
I beg your pardon. A manuscript? You wish to deposit a manuscript?
Indeed I do, for I am confident it will be quite safe here.
And that was that. As such, Mr. Sholmes' latest tale of the otherworldly mystery lies dormant in my storeroom.
Mr. Sholmes, is that really true? Do I sense that someone doesn't want to talk about this? I continue to pay your fee, do I not? Then kindly continue to store my belongings securely.
Of course, sir, of course. They're safe and sound with me, I assure you, on my life.
This is all very strange. I wonder, could I ask you something?
Ah, a gentleman from the East, I see. Yes, with that sable suit, I suppose I could offer you 6 pence for it. Without wishing to offend, the tone is somewhat dull.
Sorry.
Aha, but for your splendid attire, ma'am. 5 guineas, no less. No less. The colors are exquisite, the design exotic. Eastern artistry at its finest, may I say.
Oh my, 5 guineas, you say? How interesting. Why do I feel as though I've suffered some sort of defeat here? Actually, I was hoping to ask you about your business. I've heard it said that pawnbrokeries are used rather like banks here in London.
Yes, indeed. Many of my customers utilize the establishment as you described. I appraise their items and offer them a proportionate loan and 2 months of secure stowage. If, in that time, they repay the original sum to me, plus the agreed interest, the items are happily returned.
But what happens if they don't pay you the money?
Then the items are offered for sale in my shop, as you could see on the shelves behind me.
So you never sell items before the 2 months has passed, then?
That's right, ma'am, that's right. Which means some considerable responsibility rests on my shoulders. Should a customer's precious belongings be lost, the only recompense is for me to end it all.
The very idea, Mr. Wintermeg, is an absurdity. One should never talk of one's demise so casually. Says the man who was telling us all it was a good day to die only this morning. I agree, it shouldn't be this casual. It shouldn't be this funny. It's not a joke. I mean, it's not this funny, but the point is, like, it shouldn't... The fact is that the writers of the game apparently thought it was this funny. I'm sorry, I'm just really angry. And let us not forget that I have already helped you take measures to ensure such a tragedy never occurs. Oh, what sort of measures? I engineered a simple device, which Mr. Winterberg has installed here in this shop. I call it the Red-Handed Recorder. He said, no, not so, Mr. Winterberg. What was that deep sigh about? What on earth is a red-handed recorder? Use your eyes, my dear fellow. There are two just below the ceiling. I can see what appears to be a camera attached to some sort of timing device. Very astute. It is indeed a camera, furnished with some 100 pieces of celluloid film, and every 30 minutes precisely, the camera automatically records the appearance of the shop. Here, I have an example I could show you. Ah yes, a print from the camera set to record the activity at the shop counter. I developed a special type of film so sensitive, it produces a crystal clear image even in darkness. Really? That's extraordinary. Yes, you can clearly see the counter and the door behind it. Look. So, you see, were someone to enter the premises with ill intent, his identity would be summarily exposed. But, did you not say that the photographic prints were taken at 30-minute intervals? Indeed, as you say, my dear madam. Then what if the incident were to occur in between times? One could only say, that would be a cruel twist of fate. I must confess your devices have been giving me some cause for distress of late. I beg your pardon, Mr. Winterberg. Surely they are anything but distressing. Reassuring is the word. It's the cost of the film, sir. You must graciously place not one but 2 cameras in my shop after all, which means I must pay for nigh on 100 utterly useless prints every single day. I'm afraid the cost of the film will break me before I'm very much older. Nevertheless, a small price to pay to ensure the safety of my preferred pawnbroker, you know. My dear fellows, we verge on an age where safety and security come at a price. Oh, heaven help us. Now then, Mr. Sholmes, allow me to return your precious violin. Ah, the very thing. Thank you, Mr. Winterberg. Perhaps this might mark the end of the peculiar items you tried to pop, eh? Because if anything would happen to one of them, this would be the only answer. I really think you ought to stop waving that gun around. Someone could get hurt. Fear not. Sorry? I've only loaded a single bullet, so no one but myself could possibly be harmed. That's not really what I meant. Good day to you, then, Mr. Winterberg. It's been a pleasure as always, Mr. Sholmes. So, Mr. Naruhodo, now we can explore at last. Oh, that was rough for me. That was really, really rough for me. Look at that enormous ledger open on the counter there. Mr. Winterberg is, if nothing else, very particular about recording the items he accepts. He'd have to be. Otherwise he'd get himself into all sorts of trouble. Which might explain the thing that catches my eye far more than the ledger. This revolver here. Do not entertain even a single thought of pilfering an article herein, my dear fellow. I assure you, Mr. Winterberg would not hesitate to draw that weapon with a speed belying his portly size. Belying, maybe? I don't know. Oh, you don't mean he'd... blow his brains out, indeed, in recompense for his blunder. Oh my. But in any case, of course we would never do such a thing. How could you even suggest it? There seems to be a little door hidden behind that curtain there. That leads to the sword room. when Mr. Winterbeg keeps articles that are currently in pawn. Ah, I see. There's nothing of particular interest inside. I certainly wouldn't recommend any loss in this activity. Recommended or not, it's not something I intend to do. Or not something I tend to do. There is but one key, and Mr. Winterbeg keeps it in his pocket at all times. Before he sleeps, he places it into a small pot, which he slides under his pillow. How on earth did you know about that, Mr. Sholmes? I'm a detective, sir. It is my business to know what others do not. I am frequently assailed by information that I neither care for nor wish to retain. Mr. Sholmes, you are a wonder. And the prime suspect of this pawnbrokery is ever burgled. What an assortment of things there are on these shelves here. Crockery, footwear, clocks, and watches. Almost anything you care to imagine. Those are forfeited items, offered for sale by the pawnbroker. What does that really mean, though? When you pawn, or colloquially pop an item, he stores the item for an agreed period of time, after which the loan must be repaid. If not, he is free to display it in his shop for sale, at a price of his choosing. Oh yes, now you've explained it, I'm noticing little price tags on everything. Of course, simply by paying the agreed interest on the loan, one can extend the period of safekeeping. So you may pawn that black garb of yours without fear, my dear fellow. My treasure university uniform? Never! It embodies my student spirit. Now what do you suppose this rather enormous machine does? It seems to have two little windows for looking through. Allow me to enlighten you, my dear fellows. What you are looking at is a stereoscope. A stereoscope? Fascinating. It is aptly named, I assure you. Look through the eyepieces and see for yourself. Oh, I should be delighted to. Excuse me a moment while I just have a look. Just before you do, there is something I should point out. My dear fellows, in order to see the image properly, stereoscopically, if you, as it were, you will need to be cross-eyed. However, if that is beyond you, it is of little consequence today. All right then, I'm going to try it. Ah! Hello, you must see at once. All right then. So I need to be cross-eyed, like I'm trying to look at my own nose. What the? I don't believe it. It's just a photographic print, but it seems like you could reach out and touch it. Yes, the sense of depth is startling, is it not? Stereoscopes are one of London's many fads. They are often found in little stalls in the park. People queue for hours to see them. Why? Why are people meddling with such black magic? It is no magic, my dear madam. It is, well, far too complicated to explain at present. We shall save this lesson for another day. Oh. Look at this. Whatever could it be used for? I have no idea. Ah. There's a small catch just here, look. We're going to open it, aren't we? Wasn't she just telling me not to open things earlier? Oh my, that's amazing. It has some sort of spring-loaded mechanism. Which we'll never manage to put back the way it was before. What are you two doing? What? Us? Nothing. No, nothing at all. Whatever this device is, it seems to have a pair of little windows to look through. I feel as though I've seen something rather similar to this elsewhere. That's not a calendar you could easily miss, is it? 15th of April, today's date. Yes, that's not for sale, I must point out. It is an Eastern-style page-a-day calendar.
Every night at midnight, I tear off the front page to reveal the following day's date. The perfect calendar for a tearaway fellow such as yourself, Mr. Winterbank. And who was it who walked out of here with the wrong violin before? Viola, to be clear. Wrong instrument. Well, when the agreed storage period is passed without repayment, articles are forfeited, you see. So I have to keep a close eye on the date. It's something of a pawnbroker's obsession, you might say.
Oh yes, I can see you're very dedicated to your job. Look at this! What could this lovely big shiny box be?
That, my dear madam, is a music box. Surely you have such things in your own country.
Oh my, yes, but I've certainly never seen one so large before.
Shall we listen a while?
Ah, what a sublime sound. It's like the music of angels.
I've never heard anything like it before in my life. This particular specimen is of the larger variety, commonly found in public houses and restaurants. There is a metal disc inside on which the notes to be played are recorded. Simply by replacing the disc with another, any music you care to imagine can be played.
My goodness, what a simply delightful machine.
Indeed, though their popularity has waned recently with the development of the gramophone, of course.
Ah, science and technology advance at such an overwhelming pace.
What? Only tuppence for it? That ain't fair, and you know it. The article is barely with a penny, miss. I cannot offer more. Let's see. Sounds like there's an argument brewing over by the counter. Come on, that can't be right. Have you even had a proper butcher's at it? I've seen all I need to see, young girl.
Oh! Wait, don't we know? I'm sure I recognize her. Oh, yes, it's the young lady from Mr. McGilded's trial 2 months ago.
Let's see. Okay, let's see.
As I've always said, her name is Gina Lestrade, my lord. She's a chancer, earns her crust among large crowds, relieving people of their person. No, that's not an Irish accent. She's a chancer. No, sorry, it's been a while. Lord, she's a grand thing. Even if the village is strong. As I've always said, my lord. As I've always said, my lord. She's a grand thing. As I've always said, my lord. She's a grand thing to give opportunities. She's a chancer, earns her crust amongst large crowds, relieving people of their purses. What's commonly called a pickpocket. Gordon Bennett, you lot! She's Scottish, right? Hello, Miss Lestrade. I hope you've been well. What? You remember me then, do you? What? You remember me then, do you?
Well, I remember being completely surrounded by smoke, that's for sure.
So, what are you doing in here? Down out like the rest of us. Nothing to eat. Come to pop that black weasel. Sorry, coat, have you?
Yeah, no, hold on a second.
What is it about this black uniform that makes everyone comment on it? Ah, good day. Unless I'm much mistaken. You would be the young pickpocket who stole our experimental smoke grenade launcher. Oh, Mr. Shames! Well, I really, So you have something of value to pawn, do you? Allow me to see the article, and I shall negotiate with Mr. Winnebank on your behalf. Oh, the other one. I don't need no help from some suck-up D. Get out of my business. Go on, or I'll make trouble for you. I don't know. I really need, I think she's Scottish. I do. But I really need to revisit what a Scottish accent sounds like. It's been a while. As you wish, Miss Lestrade. I will happily remove myself from your presence. He's really done it. He's gone.
I'm sorry, but as I said, there really is no room for negotiation here.
What is that thing he has in his hand? Some kind of metal disc?
Hey you! Go on, leave me alone!
And you... No, that's not it! Ah! Oh, Miss Lestrade, just pretend we aren't here. We shan't be offended in the slightest. Sada-san can really stand her ground when she wants to.
Whatever.
Or maybe Cockney is she supposed to be? Or... I don't know. Well, I was thinking I might take a brief break at the hour mark anyway. Particularly after that whole thing with the gun, and threatening to take his own life. I could use just a couple minutes. So during that time, I can also check on how to do an accent for her. There are a bunch of videos that are really interesting that can teach me how to do that stuff. So, for multiple reasons then, let us take a brief, maybe 10-minute break. And I will see you guys in 10 minutes. Okay, we're back. Hopefully I have managed to get something here, but I'll try and do more practice before next Thursday. Somehow, I didn't really think you were the sort of person you'd use a pawnbroker, Miss Lestrade. Yeah, well, I am, alright? I'm a Londoner. I'm a Londoner. Just like... No. Yeah, well, I am, alright? I'm a Londoner. Just like everyone else. Just like everyone else. That's a problem, is it? That's a problem, is it? Yeah, well, I am, alright. I'm a Londoner. Just like everyone else. That's a problem, is it? Yeah, well, I am, alright. I'm a Londoner. Just like everyone else. That's a problem, is it? Yeah, there we go. That's okay. Let me record that. Yeah, well, I am, alright. I'm a Londoner, just like everyone else. Not a problem, is it? Yeah, well, I am, alright. I'm a Londoner, just like everyone else. Not a problem, is it? Not a problem. Not a problem, is it? Yeah, well... no, don't do a V there, Adam. Yeah, well, I am, alright. I'm a Londoner, just like everyone else. Not a problem. Come on, I'm close, I'm close. Yeah, well, I am, alright? I'm a Londoner, just like everyone else. Not a problem, is it? Not a problem, is it? Because it's that, she's not gonna say that. You know, it's a the. Yeah, well, I am, alright? I'm a Londoner, just like everyone else. Not a problem, is it? Not a problem, is it? Not a problem, is it? Okay, it's close. I'll really try and do this, figure this out before next Thursday. No, not at all. It's just that, well... Oh, I get it. I know what you're thinking. That thing probably didn't belong to her. Probably got it on the day, didn't she? Yeah, I could see it written all over your chippy cheese. Well, I might have been thinking something along those lines. You're not going to deny it, Mr. Naruto. Alright then, I'm just gonna come out and ask you straight. Do you pawn things that you steal from other people? Well, I don't know how best to answer that, really. Sometimes. I suppose, sometimes. You're not going to deny it either, Mr. Strada? Oh, this time. Alright, I swear. That thing belongs to me. The disc that Mr. Winterbank is holding? Perhaps we should see what he has to say about all this. Oh, great. Here we go again. Look at Mr. Winterbank watching diligently over his shop. There are still so many things I'm curious about. I don't believe this is a time for browsing, Mr. Naruto. We should probably see whether that argument's been resolved yet, I suppose. Oh, Whoops, hold on. There we go. Mr. Winterbank, what exactly is this metal disc that Miss Lestrade has brought in? It seems to have hundreds of tiny little bumps on its surface. Ah, this is a music disc, you see, for use inside a music box. In a music box? What? You don't even know what a music box is? What? What? You don't even know what a music box is? You still not ain't too savvy, eh? You still not ain't too savvy, eh? Maybe that's it? I don't know. What? You don't even know what a music box is? You still not ain't too savvy, eh? I know what a music box is, I've just never seen one of those discs before. The small protrusions on the metal disc encode the tune that will be played by the music box.
You simply insert the disc and set the machine going, and beautiful music plays.
It's so incredible. Tell us, what tune is on this disc?
Well, I'm afraid I couldn't tell you that. There are so many different types of music box, you see. British made, German, Swiss. I have no way of knowing which particular machine this disc was made for.
Ah, I see.
That's it in a nutshell. I wouldn't have any customers for an item like this, even if the young lady forfeited it. Really, I'm already offering more than I should at a penny.
That's a packet of lies. He told me he did. He said it was, well...
He? Who?
Never you mind. He just ain't right, that's all. That disc's worth good money, I know it is.
Well, then, you'll have to try your luck at another pawnbroker's, won't you?
Ah.
She's been in before, of course, this little tatterdemalion, I see, and brought some dubious article, although with her every single time, I might add.
Dubious? What are you trying to say? I'm an honest customer, me. So, is there something dubious about the disc she brought in today?
Well, if only it were that simple.
Sorry, what do you mean?
What she actually brought in was a storage ticket.
Ah, a storage ticket. So, Miss Lestrade has actually come to redeem an article from you today, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
A girl like me has a lot of stuff that needs storing. Alright, yes, that's definitely dubious.
The article in question would have been forfeited at midnight tonight, but as she gave me the ticket for it and repaid both the loan and the interest, I was obliged to return the article to her.
But what was the article? Do tell us, Mr. Winterbank.
The little scamp is wearing it, ma'am. It's the overcoat that she redeemed.
Oh. Well, what's wrong with that? It fit, don't it? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? It fits, don't it? I mean, it's mine, so of course it does. Of course it does. Damn it. I really haven't done a Scottish accent in a very long time. So, what about the disc then? How does that come into all this?
Ah, the disc is something else. A new article to pawn if the girl and I can agree on a price.
I'm confused. I thought you said that Miss Lestrade brought in a storage ticket today.
It's really quite simple. Yes, the child brought me a storage ticket and the money owed on it, as you say.
For this heavy black coat, which you returned to her care, as I had understood it.
That's right, yes. And rather unsurprisingly, as soon as the little ragamuffin put the thing on, she went rifling through the pockets.
Oh, you mean... What? Don't you know it's rude to stare at the lady? Ah, I see. So it came from the pocket of the overcoat, did it?
If you mean this disc, then yes. Exactly, Mum. Exactly, Mum.
And she immediately tried to pawn it. For quite a high price as well. This is all rather suspicious, I think. Keep it up. I'm just trying to pawn something like anyone else would. Miss Lestrade, may I ask who deposited the overcoat here in the first place? Well, me. It doesn't really appear to be your size. Me, old man. Me old man. It's me old man's, ain't it? Is it Miss Lestrade? Yes, this is definitely all rather suspicious. Out of my way, please. Who's this? Out of my way, please. Who's this picture postcard English gentleman? Okay, let's make sure to give him a really, really posh accent. Good day to you ladies, gentlemen. What's your problem, eh? There is no problem as long as you remove yourself. I have a matter to discuss with the proprietor. And if you intend to make a problem of it, I shall see you outside, little girl, for the hiding you deserve. Look, ain't it obvious? I ain't done talking with him yet. If you think you're such a gent, you should know how to wait in line. Well, you are an impudent little brat, aren't you? As well as a pickpocket. Eh? Who are you? How do you know who I am? The question is, how do you not know who I am? You haven't the courtesy even to remember the faces of your victims, it seems. What? You mean that from you? Broker. Broker.
Yes, sir.
I believe this filthy pocket thief has just redeemed an article from you, no?
Yes,
The article in question belongs to me. I demand for it to be returned at once. Oh my! Oh my!
No, that's a lie. What are you trying to pull?
Give me back my overcoat, you wastrel. And needless to say, any music box discs, too. No, you can't have it. You just can't. It's the old man's. Or it was. Now it's mine. Goodness, Mr. Naruto. This is a very awkward situation. Yes, I think perhaps we should hear both sides of the story in a little more detail. Miss Lestrade, is what the gentleman is saying... What do you think? It's all lies, ain't it? Obviously. I swear on my life, I ain't never laid eyes on that dandy before. Let's hear it now, you little ragamuffin. You stole it, didn't you? That ticket you brought in here just now. No, I swear it. I swear to God. I'm really just not getting that today. It was barely over an hour ago. I was walking along the street, minding my own business, when this little gutterling ran into me. I knew at once what had happened. I've been robbed yet again, I thought to myself. Those wretched pickpockets. Yet again? Oh yes. As you can see, I am a man of impeccable style. This isn't the first time that I've been targeted by these backslum scoundrels. Now then, relinquish my overcoat.
Gah! Come along now, Miss Lestrade. Give the good gentleman his coat back. If you're going to cause trouble, I shall have no choice but to call the police.
Hold on. Why everyone think it's me? Why everyone think it's me? Just look at this dandy cove. Yeah, you think I'm the dodgy one?
I'm sorry, but no one's going to believe you.
Well, what about evidence? Yeah? Where is your evidence that I've stolen something? Come on, let's see it. Oh, I have evidence, naturally.
You what?
Evidence that the article Miss Lestrade redeemed actually belongs to this gentleman. Of course, we need only consult Mr. Winterbank's ledger to know the truth. We'll be able to look up the name of the person who deposited the article in the first place. Yes, brilliant.
I'm very sorry, but I'm afraid that won't be possible.
Oh.
I never ask customers' names. That's a strict policy of mine.
But why not?
Well now, as you can imagine, some of my customers have circumstances to consider. A great many of them prefer to maintain their anonymity.
Yes, I see. But then how can you know if an article belongs to the person asking to redeem it?
Oh, it's quite simple. Good sir, might I trouble you for the watchword associated with the article in question? Of course, it's
Professor.
Yes, that's right. And all the evidence we need.
This gentleman is the rightful owner of the article, without doubt. A watchword. Interesting. So, about these watchwords, Mr. Winterberg. As I just explained, I never ask customers' names when they deposit items with me. There are many reasons why certain customers would like to keep their activities secret. That wasn't exactly a subtle glance at Mr. Shones now, was it? Now, was it? Great detectives have no dark secrets. None at all. Yes, well, anyway, that's why I always ask for a watchword whenever I accept a new article. In many ways, it's like the secret combination of numbers used to unlock a vault. The date of the deposit, a description, and the watchword uniquely identify each item. Of course, then I give the storage ticket to the customer. When someone comes to redeem something, I ask for the ticket and the watchword. And if that someone tells you the correct watchword, you return the article? That's right, sir, yes. Just as soon as the requisite fee is paid. And I have supplied you with the information you require already. But for the avoidance of doubt, the article in question is an overcoat, deposited 2 months ago on 15th February. With a watchword of Professor. All perfectly correct information, sir. But how... Really? This is beyond a joke now. There is no further room for doubt. Ugh. Excuse me, but who are you? One would expect the inquirer to introduce himself first. Though clearly you are not British, so perhaps our ways are foreign to you. Oh, sorry, yes, we're from the Empire of Japan. We're studying here. Oh yes, Japan. I've heard talk of the place. Its inhabitants live on some fiery brown-colored soup, dressed up with exotic spices. You might be thinking of somewhere else. And what was that theatrical gesticulation about? Perhaps. Anyway, if you are a gentleman, sir, you offer your own name first, before inquiring after the name of another. Yeah, of course, yes. I am Rinosuke Naruhodo. I'm a lawyer. Well, a student of law, really. My name is Sasato Mikotoba. I am Mr. Naruhodo's assistant. I see. My name is Benedict. Yes, Eggert Benedict. Eggert Benedict. In Enchanté. He is so refined in how he holds himself and how he speaks, but that name is suspicious. Now, to the matter at hand. My overcoat. Return it at once. To someone with the style to carry it off. Yeah, every move he makes, every breath he takes, I can't stand watching him. That's funny. You know, it's obviously a play off the Sting song. You know, where he says, "Every move you make, every breath you take, I'll be watching you," which is a really disturbing song. You know, my sister in I think it was like middle or high school, she and her friends called it the stalker song, and I see why. And thank you for your custom, Mr. Eggert Benedict, sir. With such reasonable rates of interest, I may even decide to come back. This is why I hate grown-ups. Just because I'm a day where everyone thinks makes me a liar. And the contents of the coat pockets, if you please, broker. But of course, sir, here is the disc for you. Just this one? Pardon, sir? I was expecting another. That is, I deposited another. Another disc.
Oh dear. I regret to inform you, sir, that was what was deposited with me. What was deposited with me was merely the overcode. The disc happened to be in one of the pockets, but I was completely unaware of it until now. So, Gutterling, you're hiding more of what's rightfully mine, are you? Sisu, eh? I don't know nothing about... I don't know. Darn. Very well. Then I shall bid you farewell. Say goodbye to style. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. That disc is mine. Ah, what do you think you're doing, you little tramp? You've drawn blood, you filthy animal. Oh my, yes, there's blood on the disc. It's because of all those sharp little bumps. The man must have scratched his finger on them. I found it first, alright? I mean, it belonged to me, old man. So you're not having it. Oi, you take it. Me? If I hang on to it, they'll have it off me again. So you keep hold of it. Mr. Strud, why is this disc so important to her? You there, in the black livery. Hand that disc to me at once, please. No, don't! He's lying. Grown-ups are all liars. What do I do now? How am I going to resolve this? Wow, Miss Lestrade is really looking daggers at the mysterious gentleman. We need to do something to calm things down before she loses control and attacks him again. Look at those piercing eyes. He's clearly in no mood to talk. We have to do something quickly before this mysterious gentleman leaves to fetch the police or something. Look at Mr. Windibank watching diligently over his shop. There are still so many things I'm curious about, but somehow I don't really feel like this is the right time to be browsing. Calming this fraught situation must be our first priority. I'm fairly certain we can find just the great thing we need among the articles here in this shop. Oh, Mr. Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes? What are you examining with such keen interest there? As you enjoy a bar of caramel, I see. So, you found me at last, Mr. Naruto. Sorry? After that young pickpocket sent me on my way, I was forced to lurk in the shadows, cruelly ostracized as the rest of you partook of the jovial atmosphere of fellowship. I had nothing to occupy my mind, but was too ashamed to let society see what my downfall had done to me. So, feigning mock interest, I pretended to examine the tedious trinkets in this desolate place. Whilst, as you shrewdly observed, gnawing on the only friend I have left, this 7% solution of caramel. Pray, do you claim to understand the depths of my despair, Mr. Naruto? But how could you? I was so lonely, so desperately lonely. Then why on earth did you rejoin the conversation? Things have gone from bad to worse here, you know. Yes, I overheard much of your conversation. Or rather, in my craving for human contact, my ears devoured every word that was uttered. You really were sad, weren't you? Poor Mr. Sholmes, I feel simply awful for you. It would seem that my inferences are correct. Oh, surely you're not about to tell us that you've solved the entire case once again. My dear madam, sometimes I wonder, were my genius for deduction to be commoditized? How much could I pawn it for? Seems Mr. Sholmes has had another of his flashes of inspiration. But who knows if it will help to lesolve the situation between Miss Lestrade and the mysterious gentleman. What's the right thing to do here? We're obviously going to have to listen to the deduction. Well, Miss Lestrade, it would appear you find yourself in something of a predicament. Tsk. Well, the blue blazes have you been, eh? Pardon? When a lady's in trouble, the true gent's supposed to be there to help. Straight away. Not an hour later. Harsh.
And who, pray tell, are you? Mr. Eggert Benedict, you have, in my eyes, a veritably encyclopedic array of curiosities about your person. Nevertheless, there are two immovable conclusions I have drawn. I beg your pardon. The first is this. The true reason for your visit to this pawnbrokery today is something you have not yet revealed. And the second is this. A considerable crime is in contemplation, one you will orchestrate with the intent to steal a vast sum of money. Well, Mr. Benedict, what say you to my deductions? How? He turns as white as a hard-boiled egg. It would seem that once again, Mr. Sholmes has made a flawless deduction. Just who do you think you are, sir? Ah, yes, as I hoped. That is precisely the pained expression I was looking for. I really need to work on these voices. And obviously I have Sholmes, but Gina, Lestrade, and Benedict, I really have to. The time has come for yet another Herlock Sholmes logic and reasoning spectacular. Mystery Man's aim. First of all, we must ask ourselves on what business you ventured to this pawnbrokery today. You claim to have followed this pickpocket here, having had the redemption ticket stolen from you on the street. That is most certainly a lie. The real truth is something quite different. As revealed by that which you hold in your hand. Yes, what brought you to the shop in the first place is the staff recruitment flyer. The piece of paper in your hand is a staff wanted advertisement from this very shop. Yet even the most unobservant would soon realize that a man of your appearance has no need of such employ. In other words, there is some ulterior motive for your actions. The cane, which you unwittingly clutch to your person, exhibits an incontrovertible contradiction. What utter rot! I've had this cane for years. The contradiction of which I speak is, of course, missing ferrule. The end of any walking cane would be terminated with a metal ferrule to protect the wooden tip. And yet, detailed analysis shows the wooden tip of this stick to be utterly bare. Therefore, there is only one conclusion. The rod that you hold in your hand, which appears to be a walking cane, is in fact no cane at all. You recoil, sir. Is something wrong? And in your recoil, you inadvertently facilitate the answer of your next conundrum to present itself. Namely, what is the truth behind this rod you bear? Yes, your reaction betrays the truth. The handle, which you evidently would like to conceal, is the key to understanding this riddle you see. For the moment I saw it, my suspicions were aroused. What walking cane demands such a stout handle, mused I. But of course, as I said, this is no walking cane. No, that rod. Is the broken handle of a shovel. What? Are you insane? And now, having determined this undeniable truth, the conclusion is clear. Your true motive for coming here was to take employment at this establishment in order to excavate the ground beneath the premises. What a calculated crime you have conceived, sir. A wickedly calculated crime. Now, Mr. Benedict, let us continue. For we must expose the details of this elaborate crime you are in the planning. That you are planning. This is utterly absurd. You suggest that I, a gentleman, intend to excavate the ground beneath this pawnbrokery with a broken shovel? What on earth do you propose I could expect to find there? Some long-forgotten treasure, I suppose. Save for such a fanciful theory, what possible reason could I have to do as you say? Oh, but there is ample reason. As you are only too well aware, Mr. Benedict. Ah, and your furtive glance is more telling than I could have hoped. What? Let us consider what would motivate a man to infiltrate such a shop such as this and covertly dig beneath its floor. The answer is revealed by the council notice on the counter, to which your eyes were inadvertently drawn. This letter gives notice of public works to be carried out in the local area. And, according to the enclosed plan of the upcoming sewage works, beneath this shop runs a sewer that adjoins another, one that runs under the bank on the opposite side of the road. This madness has entered the sewers now, has it? By excavating the ground beneath our feet, you will gain access to the waterway that flows in very close proximity to the great vault of the financial institution opposite. What are you... In summary, sir, you've devised a master plan to pull off an elaborate bank robbery by dint of the underground tunnels. Master plan? Which brings us, at last, to the final chapter of this lurid scheme. With what plunder did the thief hope to make off from the underground vault of the bank? Are you quite serious? Having consulted with Scotland Yard some days ago, I happen to know the answer. But naturally, the answer is no secret to you, is it, Mr. Benedict? I have no idea what you're talking about. Allow me to present a rather interesting piece of evidence. You see, this picture postcard tells us all we need to know. A postcard of the Great Exhibition? I'm afraid you've quite lost me. Currently, in the final stages of preparation, the Great Exhibition will soon be underway, and the government has provided extra funds to complete its centerpiece, the Crystal Tower. Funds that currently sit in the vault on the bank... sit in the vault of the bank on the other side of this road. Pardon? Yes, the considerable crime you have been contemplating is the theft of which sits in the vault of that bank the special reserve funds for the Great Exhibition. Of course, that is top secret police information, so keep it under your hat, please. Oh, damn it, Sholmes! This concludes Herlock Sholmes' great deduction of this pawnbroking puzzle. Mr. Sholmes? Well, Mr. Naruhodo, an impressively upbeat deduction for a detective racked with loneliness, would you not agree? Was it true what you said about the bank over the road and what it has in its vault? Indeed, though few know of its existence. It is one of the government's most closely guarded secrets. Gregson told me, in the strictest confidence. But you just announced it to everyone here. Rather loudly, in fact. Ah. And if it's such a big secret, how would Mr. Benedict have come to find out about it? That can be but one explanation for that. Clearly it is because the man is a criminal. But what if he didn't know anything about the money in the vault? If he is a criminal, as you've said, then buying a brand new shovel is sure to be the first thing he does now that you've revealed the secret. Oh. Or if he doesn't, perhaps maybe Mr. Winterbank will. He already has plenty of shovels here, after all.
Oh, my life! I assure you I'm not so unscrupulous.
Well, hopefully this has taught you a valuable lesson. Sensitive information must be handled with the utmost of care. One can never be sure that someone privy to secrets won't disclose them, and once the word is out, it's out. Perhaps I'll think twice before confiding in you next time, Mr. Sholmes. An excellent idea, Mr. Naruhodo. An excellent idea. Well then, Mr. Naruhodo, you know what to do, I'm sure. Yes, let's listen to that great deduction again and see if we can massage it into shape. Very well. Let us start once more from the beginning. Of Herlock Sholmes' magnificent logic and reasoning spectacular. I am not going to reread all of this. Just, you know, it's a lot. So, by Mr. Sholmes' reasoning, Mr. Benedict came here in order to apply for a job so that he could dig down through the floor. Yes, in an attempt to tunnel into the sewers to gain access to the money in the vault of the bank across the road. But he wouldn't get very far with a broken shovel, would he? No, I think it's fair to say his motives lie elsewhere. The question is, where? What did bring Mr. Benedict here at this particular point in time? That's a proper English gentleman's cane, isn't it? Look at the beautifully polished brass on the handle. Yes, but Mr. Sholmes is right. It's not the sort of handle you usually see on a cane. Perhaps it's the latest London fashion. I mean, that's just guesswork, of course. Perhaps you could adopt a cane, Mr. Naruto. It might rather suit you. I have a feeling it might argue with the sword around my waist. That silk top hat is whiter than white. Only an English gentleman could hope to carry off something so bright. But it looks so incongruous with the black overcoat, don't you think? Perhaps it's the latest London fashion. I mean, that's just guesswork, of course. How about it, Mr. Naruto? I think you'd look very fetching in a white top hat. Well, you know, I think it might look rather incongruous with my black university uniform, so... Ah! There we go. Oh! Look at all the scribbled notes on the back of the flyer here. I don't believe it. What is it? Listen to what it says. Name, Gene Lestrade. Height, 5'2". Green cap, scruffy waistcoat, grubby white shirt, blue satchel, racket. It's a detailed description of Miss Lestrade. Goodness! There's even a sketch of her hat and all. Although if he showed it to her, she'd fire that smoke grenade launcher in his face for sure. And look! The details of this shop have been written down here too. Winterberg's Pawnbrokery, Baker Street. Redemption deadline 15th April. Which is today's date. Why would Mr. Benedict have all that information scrawled on the back of that piece of paper?
Take that!
Yes, what brought you here to the shop in the first place is the info about Miss Lestrade. Quite so, my dear fellow. It would appear that the writing and sketch on the reverse of the flyer pertain to the pickpocket, Miss Lestrade, and to Mr. Winterberg's pawnbrokery here. You originally told us that you had merely given chase after Miss Lestrade stole the redemption ticket from you. But that, is a thinly veiled lie. It is the information on the back of the flyer that led you here today, by which I mean here to Winterbank's pawnbrokery, and today, the redemption deadline of that overcoat. So, you waited outside for the young girl matching the description you have written down to arrive. Humph. And you have gone to some lengths to hide the reason for your pursuit of Mrs. Lestrade. In other words, there is some ulterior motive for your actions. The cane, which you unwittingly clutch to your person, exhibits an incontrovertible contradiction. What utter rot! I've had this cane for years. The contradiction of which I speak is, of course, missing ferrule. Right, here we go again. What's a ferrule? It's the metal cap commonly found on the end of a cane, Mr. Naruto. Ah, the bit that makes a nice clacking sound on the pavement? Yes, exactly. And Mr. Sholmes is right, it appears to be missing on this cane. But it doesn't actually look broken, does it? No, it doesn't. Though the gentleman certainly did recoil when Mr. Sholmes identified the cane as suspicious. In other words, there's some secret about the cane that Mr. Benedict would rather we didn't know. Initialing. Look here, Mr. Sato. There are some letters on the handle. Ah, yes. Those must be initials, I think. In the West, it's customary for people to engrave their belongings with the first letters of their names. So Herlock Sholmes would be HS, you mean? That's right. And the initials on this cane obviously... Oh. AG. Why does it feel as though that's not quite right?
Take that!
Contradiction of which I speak is, of course, the initialing. A most astute observation, wouldn't you say, Mr. Eggert Benedict? We are led to believe, sir, that your initials are EB. Yet in a most possessive manner, you have in your grasp a cane bearing the initials AG. An incontrovertible contradiction indeed. Would you not agree? No, you're wrong. This cane isn't... You said before that you'd had that cane for years. Urgh. So don't try to tell us you just borrowed it from a friend or found it in the park. In short, though you hold yourself to be a gentleman, you have withheld your true name. You recoil, sir. Is something wrong? And in your recoil, you inadvertently facilitate the answer of the next conundrum to present itself. Namely, what is the truth behind this rod you bear? Yes, your reaction betrays the truth. The handle, which you so evidently would like to conceal, is the key to understanding this riddle you see. Here we go. Let's consider the bare bones of what's happened here. Miss Lestrade redeemed that fine-looking overcoat, and that mysterious man has appeared, introducing himself with a fake name, and claiming that the overcoat belongs to him. But we know that he actually identified Miss Lestrade from a written description, which suggests that everything else he's told us is untrue. So what we need to do here is somehow prove that the overcoat cannot possibly belong to him. It is a rather strange hand. Oh yeah, no, we saw this already. Oh, no, we didn't, I guess. You expect to see such a cane being twirled charmingly by its owner as it skips merrily down the street. You do? Something has just occurred to me. We have a shovel back in our office, don't we? Yes, you're right. And its handle is exactly the same shape as this cane's. Here we go. Now I'm starting to wonder if it's not actually a cane at all, but a spade. Mr. Holmes' deductions are curiously compelling, aren't they? I've been looking closely at this hat for some time now, and it suddenly occurred to me that a bright white top hat like that might be just the hat for me. You like it, do you? I think I do. Don't I? Well, in that case, you could see if there isn't something similar among Mr. Winterbank's forfeited items. After we conclude our investigation, we must focus on the task at hand at the moment. Ooh. Oh, the seam on the shoulder there is coming apart, look. So it is. Do you know, a moment ago when Mr. Benedict was surprised by something that was said, I thought he heard him make a rather strange noise. It sounded a bit like a tiny growl. But now, I think it was probably the sound of this seam ripping open. If you look closely, it does seem to be a very tight fit. The sleeves are stretched to bursting, and he wouldn't have a hope of fastening it at the front. If he were to run around in it, I'm sure the whole thing would fall apart. That I'd like to see. Sorry? So, how can we make Mr. Benedict run around? She's really giving this some thought.
Take that!
The split seam, which you evidently would like to conceal, is the key to understanding this riddle, you see. Yes, because the overcoat is rather obviously a poor fit. Having forced it over your broad shoulders, the seam is already breaking apart. My suspicions were aroused from the outset. When you so boldly lied about your name, and so boldly waylaid this pickpocket. This catalogue of untruths has all been for one very specific purpose. To steal the article that the young girl redeemed from Mr. Winterbank. But what really irks me is this. The considerable crime I initially imagined has been considerably curtailed. Now, Mr. Benedict, let us continue. For we must expose the details of this elaborate crime you have in the planning. This is utterly absurd. You suggest that I, a gentleman, designed a wheeze to fill some tawdry article of ponage. Of pawnage, sorry. Have you forgotten that I redeemed the article in the proper manner using the watchword? Had I not been the one to deposit it in the first place, how could I possibly have known the relevant details? I don't know how to pronounce that at all. Nisipa, or something, I don't know. Oh, but the watchword can be discovered. As you are only too well aware, Mr. Benedict. Ah, and your furtive glance is more telling than I could have hoped. What? Let us consider how one might come to learn a secret watchword relating to the pawn property of another. The method is revealed by the council notice on the counter. Yeah, okay, here we go. The direction of the deduction must change rather dramatically now, I think. Yes, no more talk of tunneling into the sewers. Which is a pity, because it all sounded rather exciting. Anyway, you can't deny that this mysterious gentleman did know the watchword. Yes, Professor. If you didn't know that word, Mr. Winterbank would never allow you to redeem the article. Or, looking at it another way, if you did know that word, Mr. Winterbank would allow you to redeem the article whether it was yours or not. So the question is, could this gentleman have found the watchword out somehow? Baker Street Works is the title. Yes, and it does mention Sewage Works, as Mr. Shome said. Oh, and specifically mentions that tonight's sale is at the confectionery shop on tonight's sale at the confectionery shop on the corner won't be affected. Case solving first, confectionery later, Miss Nohara. Cursed my overly expressive face. This is Mr. Winterbank's gun. Yes, loaded with only one bullet, he said. It would appear that being a pawnbroker is a very life-or-death profession. That might just be this particular establishment. Look at this, Mr. Sato. Ah, it appears to be a memo that Mr. Winterbank has scribbled to himself. Let's see, what does it say? Oh, Professor. Professor. Mr. Winterbank must make a note of the watchwords his customer is given right before their eyes. And in an alarmingly clear script as well. Oh dear, I don't know where to look. Who knows what other secrets I might see? This looks to be quite an old lamp, but it's obviously been well looked after, and there's oil in it too. In other words, it's still in use. Yes, it would appear so. But as for how it could be related to Mr. Benedict knowing the watchword of the pawn article, I have no idea. That makes two of us. I just thought I'd, take a look at it just in case. But yeah, it's pretty clear.
Take that!
The method is revealed by the notelet on the counter to which your eyes were inadvertently drawn. Yes, the broker here follows the same procedure whenever a customer comes to redeem an article. He asks the customer for the watchword and notes down the response uttered on a notelet he has to hand. Then he consults his ledger and confirms whether or not the watchword matches that of the article in question. I would expect nothing less of a diligent pawnbroker. But his diligence clearly has its disadvantages. What are you talking about? It is increasingly apparent that you were present in this shop before your accusation against Miss Lestrade. In all likelihood, you followed her inside, then observed her talking to Mr. Winterbank. When the diligent broker made a note of the watchword, as is his common practice, you observed him writing the word Professor on the notelet beside the ledger. And that, sir, was the master plan you devised to steal the pawned article from the young Miss Lestrade. Master plan? Which brings us to at last to the final chapter of this lurid scheme. Why would you go to such lengths to redeem that particular article from this pawnbroker? Are you quite serious? For an ill-fitting overcoat, that hardly seems to justify the effort, much less a worthless music box disc. But naturally, you had a very good reason to make them yours, didn't you, Mr. Benedict? I have no idea what you're talking about. Allow me to present a rather interesting piece of evidence. You see, this picture postcard tells us all we need to know. articles we're talking about are the overcoat and the music box disc that were in one of the that was in one of the pockets, which, according to Mr. Winnebago, isn't even worth a penny. And yet this man went to such lengths to steal them. Why? I wonder if perhaps we already have the evidence we need to explain it, Mr. Naruto. Could we? Really? I'd better have a thorough look through all the evidence we've collected so far.
Take that!
Oh, whoops. Ah, shit. Didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to do that. What spectacular... Oh, well, it's supposed to be a logic and reasoning spectacular, so I thought I'd contribute to the show. This is my show, Mr. Naruto. Kindly perform any peculiar experiments on your own stage. Sorry. That was my bad. I didn't mean to press the present button. This man has used some... he certainly doesn't want either for their monetary value, though. Still, they must be of value somehow, to someone. This is the last piece of the puzzle. I better have another look through the evidence and see if there are any clues hiding. I meant to take a look at this. Look at all the little bumps on the disc. They're so tiny. Yes, the protrusions are called pins, and they pluck the teeth of the comb to make notes. And just on the edge, there's a small amount of blood. Yes, the blood of the mysterious Mr. Eggert Benedict. When Mr. Lestrade tried to grab the disc from him, the pin scratched his fingers, it seems. Like when you're grating some daikon radish and accidentally cut your finger. Ouch, just thinking about it hurts. It puts me off eating radish. Oh! Oh, there's a little scrap of paper stuck onto the reverse side of the disc, look. And a scribbled word or two. It looks like somebody's name. For McGilded. McGilded? It couldn't be. But it is, Mr. Naruto. A name I shall never forget for as long as I live. But why? Why is his name on this? Why is his name on this? Oh, McGilded. The surname of the man whose innocence you secured in the trial 2 months ago, Mr. Naruto. Yes, a trial I'll never forget. Not least because of the tragic accident that followed it in which Mr. McGilded was killed. But why would his name be on the music box disc? I'm afraid I have absolutely no idea. But one thing seems certain. This certainly cannot be a simple coincidence. Now, let's try...
Take that!
There we go. You see, this music box disc tells us all we need to know. What's that on the back? It reads, For McGilded. Mr. Magnus McGilded, the unfortunate philanthropist who perished in curious circumstances at the Old Bailey 2 months ago. A prominent man in London, though his loan-mongering demonstrated a distinct lack of scruples. So, you're an associate of his, are you? Or perhaps a subordinate? Mr. McGilded was a man of unusually small stature. In fact, he was precisely the right size for that overcoat that you've squeezed yourself into. Your true identity remains shrouded in mystery, Mr. Eggert Benedict, but the final conclusion here is crystal clear. The reason you came to this pawnbrokery today was to retrieve an article left behind by the late Magnus McGilded. Alright. And we just hit the 2-hour mark. So, as soon as we get to a place where we can save, we're gonna save, and then we're gonna stop. Perfect timing. And I will try and nail down these voices before next week. Let's see if there's anyone to raid or anything like that. Nah, not really. Okay. Well, I will see you guys on Saturday, then, for, we're starting, Chapter 3 of Wallace and Gromit's Grand Adventures. And by the way, just so you guys know, I do think that, that once we are done with Wallace and Gromit's Grand Adventures, we are going to make our way through the Monkey Island games, which I am so excited to show you guys. I'm so excited. They are some of my favorite games of all time. I'm so excited for the next one that's coming out later this year, and I want to make sure I can get through the entire series before that game comes out, because I really just, they're so great. They're so good. And they were, along with basically Life is Strange, part of the reason I wanted to create a non-violent game channel. Part of the reason I felt that there was enough stuff out there that it was worth shining a spotlight on them. Some truly exceptional stuff. Not just stuff out there, but exceptional stuff out there. Exceptional non-violent games that deserve to get a focus on. So, that is what we're going to be doing on Saturdays after we finish the next 2 chapters of Wallace and Gromit.